biggest risk to Subnautica 2 was that the devs chose to make it another family-friendly adventure like Below Zero, and not the slow-burning epic dripping in mystery like the first. And oh man, I miss those days. There's a locked off Reddit post that sailed past 50,000 upvotes on Subnautica's main subreddit before being locked off, urging people not to buy the game. Classic boycott. It makes a few sweeping assumptions, and I'm not sure if they're all accurate, but details of the post aren't so relevant. The crux was to stop letting Krafton make games because they're stealing money from developers, and there is possibly some truth in that, so we'll circle back around to that in a minute. The reason for all of this is because Krafton has replaced Unknown World's leadership. Ted Gill, Charlie Cleveland, and Max McGuire. They're out, and former Striking Distance boss Steve Papoutsis is in as CEO, effective immediately. Now, his name rings a bell. That's because he's the guy who stepped in when Glenn Schofield, who was originally famous for Dead Space, left the Callisto Protocol studio in 2023. During that transition, developers were complaining of 6 and 7 day crunch weeks, and Schofield later said that the game shipped early after Krafton cut the schedule.
I wanted about 3.5 more months.
Leaving content on the floor, which was a big part of why the game had massive early release issues. And he said that they did him a favor, as it allowed him to get in better shape and get in a better headspace. And that is honestly great if it's the truth, but looking at him before and after, he may have lost a few pounds, but it also seems like he lost more than a few fragments of his soul too. It always just struck me as being pretty burnt out.
I don't know how much more of it I could take. Because yes, my health,
And he wasn't too subtle about blaming Krafton for it either.
You're going to get the time, just no regrets. That was the term that was kept being used, no regrets. Just put whatever you want into the game, And so some of the folks come over and they just said, no. It's December of 2022. And I was like, it's not going to get done.
That was the first time I'd ever read about Krafton. I wasn't particularly excited by what I saw, so when I heard that they took ownership of the upcoming Subnautica game, oh man, my heart sank. And I'm not saying I called it or anything like that, but Jesus Christ, it does kind of feel like these guys are taking the best devs and then screwing them so hard they can't stand up anymore. Like the devs and the publishers figure out the finances, that is their job. But as a gamer on the outside, I can see why people are trying to spin up the boycott machine, because other than bitching on forums, there's not much else we can do. And Krafton ain't in it for the love of the game, they're in it to make money. They are the publisher. And they keep taking risks and screwing up at the expense of the industry, losing the most creative devs. Well, it's annoying. But in both the case of Callisto Protocol and now Subnautica 2, Steve arrived as Krafton's fixer, while the original creative lead or leads left under less than ideal circumstances. Though the parallel is pretty hard to miss. Once again, the founders are shown the door, a closer is installed, and the schedule suddenly changes. And on the 5th of July, Charlie posted a long Twitter thread explaining the shock inside the studio. He said, "We all know that the game is ready for early access, and we thought the decision was ours to make. Now it's in Krafton's hands. After all these years, to find that I can no longer work at the company I started, stings." So it does not look voluntary. Back when Krafton bought Unknown Worlds, it promised $250 million of bonus if certain revenue targets were hit by the end of 2025. And releasing this year would have kept that bonus in play, worth hundreds of thousands, maybe 7 figures for some of the staff. And Krafton tried to shake the trio's credibility by letting it be known that 90% of that $250 million was intended to go to the 3 of them, and Cleveland shot back by saying that they always intended to share out the money, just as they did apparently when they sold the studio. Financial independence as a developer requires these massive numbers, and so it isn't unthinkable that the 3 of them would want to hold on to all of it. But that said, and this is probably the most important factor that works against the trio, Krafton stated that they had made multiple requests for Charlie Cleveland and Max McGuire to resume their roles, specifically Charlie as game director and Max as technical director. The thing is, Charlie relocated from San Francisco to Los Angeles in December 2023, describing it as a personal reset. He quickly got stuck into the film industry and wasn't shy about making it known either, with tweets and alongside that, similar Instagram posts. And Crafton claimed this $250 million was based on the expectation that these executives would demonstrate active leadership and involvement in the development of Subnautica 2, and according to Crafton, both men refused, and instead Cleveland focused on a personal film project. And this refusal, according to Crafton, led to repeated confusion in direction and significant delays in Subnautica 2's development. And that because the executives failed to meet these expectations, they were dismissed. And I hate to say this because I'm a Subnautica super fan, but the truth is, Charlie stepped down from his creative director position after Subnautica and handed the directing reins to David Kalina.
My name is David Kalina, and I steer the ship, help people make good decisions, and define the scope of the game, that sort of thing.
Stop right there, Altera.
And as fun as the game was, it was a shadow of the original.
Neptune 1 rocket online.
Oh, God! Ugh, the goosebumps, dude!
2, 1.
And I don't want to get sucked into that bullshit argument about how it's supposed to be a DLC and blah blah. Who fucking cares? Even if it was supposed to be a teaser or a DLC or a sequel or whatever, it's a different game. It was good, really good, but Subnautica was great. Nobody wants Subnautica 2 to be good. Everybody wants it to be great. But Cleveland and Max McGuire made their mark on history, and what a mark! And they've got their money, enough to kick back in a mansion, travel first class and whatever. They're set, and you know, good for them I guess, I hope they're enjoying it. But they don't seemingly have a good track record of, say, someone like Hideo Kojima for living for the art of the game and to keep pushing boundaries with every generation of hardware that comes along. And in regards to this fan dream of Subnautica 2 being the second coming, there's never really been much evidence to back up that it was actually going to be that good. And while Crafton's underlying motives might not entirely be clear, and while everybody might not agree with me that Below Zero really dropped the ball, the writing's been on the wall in regards to the fact that the creative leads of Unknown Worlds haven't been creating since the original Subnautica.
My name is Charlie Cleveland, and I'm the design director on Subnautica.
My name is David Kalina. I'm the project lead on Subnautica Below Zero.
I'm Anthony Gallegos, design lead on Subnautica 2.
It's always heartbreaking to see founders lose control of something they built, for sure, but they had oversight over Below Zero and look what happened. Usually you just need to follow the money to find out who's at fault, and in almost every case that's the publisher, but it's not so clear here. I really can't help but think that if that $250 million were invested into the game rather than the founders, well, I don't know, maybe that would be better for the fans. Don't forget, they sold the company to Crafton in 2021 for $500 million up front. And while Cleveland claimed that they shared this out with a team, which transpired to be around 10% or 50 million between 100 people, and some would get more and some would get less, as was explained by Jason Schreier, the Bloomberg reporter who broke the story originally. Whatever way it was cut, that still left $450 million between three guys. That was before this bonus, for which they were supposed to be working damn hard on making sure that Subnautica 2 would sell well enough to earn Crafton back their investment plus change, which as fans we would want to happen so that they make another one. So whoever created the post about boycotting the game, stop whining. Crafton dangled another $250 million as a carrot to get them to keep on top of Subnautica 2, and literally only one of two things could have happened. Either Crafton are being totally immoral and thought of a clever way to save on $250 million and so screwed the trio out of the final third of their payment to save some cash, potentially butchering their golden goose in the vital run-up to its release. And it is possible, for sure, but also kind of seems odd for a company that reports profits of over $1 billion a year and has the most at stake with Subnautica's success. Or the carrot turned out to not be quite so enticing for a trio who had just pocketed $500 million between them. A trio who can sleep soundly at night knowing that they made one of the most awesome games ever and are unlikely to trump that. And this is what changes people. This is what makes people realize they can do whatever they want. Why sit through another 5 years of crunch in a studio when you could be making movies like Charlie, or traveling the world like a rock star, or doing anything you can dream of? They do seem like pretty altruistic guys, so their dreams genuinely might be to pursue charitable endeavors and promote social causes. I'm really not knocking them as individuals, but in regards to Subnautica, no solution will be found through boycotting the game or hating on Crafton, because as fans, Subnautica's survival now depends on the devs managing to steer the game back on course. And so when Crafton claims that the old team missed the 2024 milestones and that Charlie and Max refused to resume their roles, and that the early access build falls far short in content and volume, and went on to promise fair and equitable compensation for the remaining staff, which time will tell, but that is something that they can be held accountable for, well, it's just not nearly as cut and dry as the Reddit post implies. But make of it what you will. This is the state of play. Fired founders, a fixer CEO with a history of crunch-ridden rescue jobs, a delayed launch, a bonus that'll never be paid. I wish we were just talking about biomes and sea creatures instead. Well, normally my videos aren't quite so political, but they're always fact-filled and sprinkled with opinions, so please do give us a like or maybe even a subscribe if you enjoyed it, and hopefully I can make you smile a little bit more with the next one. Peace out, and hopefully see you soon.